Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, how it affects your life, how it affects the world in general, and also how it reflects the future, the immediate future. I normally do these forecasts for 1 week in advance, but I've been covering a wider scope mainly because there's going to be we're in a relatively chaotic period between now and um, until around mid-May and possibly through July. So let me give you the breakdown. If you want to learn astrology, please contact me at 508-525-0001. Or if you want a reading for your own personal edification, you can contact me at the same number. That's 508-525-0001. And you can also email me at Gary Gomes G. That's my name and the letter G at gmail.com. So again, I'll repeat that. Gary Gomes G at Gmail, at gmail.com. All right, so you can tell already that I'm confused this week, which is not a big leap for me. Uh, but um, but let's look at the chart, and you can see where a lot of the apparent chaos and concern is coming from. Okay, so let me just pull up the chart. Also, if you would be so kind, we're very close to 1,000 subscribers. That's a milestone in YouTube, and this has been a slow growth channel, if I'm quite honest about it. But I'd rather have a slow and consistent growth pattern than an explosive one. I don't mind explosive growth, but I think the people who are watching are really interested, and they have long attention spans, and I like that. Personally, I like that. I have nothing against people who just want the information quick and dirty. I'm sort of that way myself, but some of these things have to be looked at under a microscope a little bit in order to understand what's really happening. Okay? So, again, like I said, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends about the channel, and I look forward to potentially infinite growth. So I'm going to pull up the chart for this week. I'm not going to add any additional special charts this week. Let me just see, hold on a second. Get it up for you, get the chart up for you. And have to be careful how I phrase that. And so we have, this is interesting. All right, so I'll tell you what I find so fascinating about this chart because I know you're dying to know. Okay, so we have Mars in the first house, debilitated, but there's a cancellation of debilitation because the moon is in Mars sign and Mars is in the moon sign. That's called a party of art and yoga or a mutual exchange, and oftentimes it cancels out the debilitation in a chart. There is still some problem with Mars. Okay, there's still an issue with Mars and with Mars actions. And the main thing that happens when Mars is debilitated is logic goes right out the window. So people tend to, this has been my experience, people tend to be accident prone, they tend to be excitable, they tend to be uh, easily aggravated. We have had earthquakes in series, and I'll explain what's causing that in a second. in two locations, or actually in one location in particular, Istanbul, Turkey, has been hit with a series of earthquakes. I did notice a line coming down close to Istanbul last week, and to be honest with you, I thought it was a political issue. It turned out to be an environmental issue, and which could have obviously have consequences for the for the rest of the country, uh, political consequences. And I will look at one more thing. Let me just see if I have the birth chart in here. I do want to look at Canada. Let me see if I have Canada's birth information. Because there's an election in Canada this week. Actually, I believe it's ongoing right now. And April 28th. Okay, so that's Monday. Interesting. Okay. And so I'm just looking online. You may be seeing this news story. I don't think you are. Hold on a second. Let me just read this for 1 second. Um, all right, so Canada is technically under the domain of England or the UK, or as a parliamentary democracy. Um, and it's Pierre Poilievre versus Mark Carney, who doesn't have a political background, but comes from a central banking position. He took over when Justin Trudeau resigned, um, because it looked like Justin Trudeau um, was going to lose badly if he stayed in the election. So so we're going to look at Canada's charges for a second. I want to look at that first and then explain to you what's going on uh, elsewhere. Okay, so that's my side trip. So Canada has a Pisces rising. There's a lot of activity going on in Pisces right now, and it was founded like the United States was. It looks like during a Rahu Mahadasha. So this is actually fairly typical. Countries are founded um, during times of discontent, although Canada is known as a relatively um, not quiet, but a relatively calm electorate, and is in a Saturn Mahadasha, which would favor liberals, but it's in a Mercury subperiod, which would favor, um, at least from what I can tell, would favor the conservatives in Canada. So Canadian conservatives are not quite as conservative as um, American conservatives are. Um, it's more of a centrist party, from what little I know of it. And liberals in Canada are closer to Labour in the UK than they are to what we used to know as the mainstream Democratic Party. They're closer to the progressive part, the progressive element, progressive wing of the Democratic Party. That's a vast overgeneralization, but that's how I see them. Uh, so, so essentially, we have Mars, a debilitated Mars, in the same sign as the conservative government is, or not the conservative government, the conservative party's sign. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. And but there's also a Mars aspect on. So it's really a kind of a toss a coin election because we're in a Mercury subperiod, and I'm looking at where Jupiter is right now. Jupiter's in Venus, a sign right now, aspected by Saturn. So I would predict a narrow victory for the conservatives. I could be wrong about this because Carney has shown um, a great deal of popularity, and but and there may be backlash against the conservatives because of Trump, because of the relationship between the United States and Canada at the current moment. So this is very tough for me to call, but I give a slight edge to the conservatives from this particular um, chart. Uh, it's Let me just go back just a little bit. Sun. Sun is exalted now, so that gives the seated party a slight edge. Um, but let me just see now. Let me look at my change. Um, I think, I think, you know, again, Carney may be able to enact that change, um, but I don't know. The thing that will push Carney into power is he may be seen as a um, more in opposition to Trump, although Poilievre uh, is not really has made it quite clear that he's not following along. Uh, that he'll be quite aggressive in um, pushing back against the United States in issues like tariffs. But there's this stigma of identity. I'm not crazy about the idea of a world banker, um, a former head of the World Bank, taking over Canada, but or leading the Canadian government. But that's Canada's decision, not mine. So I think that I give this slight edge to the conservative candidate, but Carney has a really good chance. And given it's interesting because they're holding the actual election on a day in which both the sun and the moon are exalted. So um, that's so that favors both the conservatives because moon will be in the same sign as Venus, and also the liberals because Sun will be in Aries. But the Lord of Aries is weak by transit, and Venus, yeah, I think there's going to be a revolt in Canada or a revolt against the existing class. Now again, we'll see within about a couple of days whether I'm right or wrong, whether or not the Liberal Party maintains a seat. But there are some people who are saying that if they do, if the Liberal Party wins, Alberta is talking about seceding, and so is Quebec. So we'll see, and we'll see how true that becomes. But Canada is in um, it's in very bad economic shape. Um, so again, we look around in the United States and we say, oh, we're in we're in really bad economic shape. Compared to the rest of the world, we're actually doing pretty good. So again, this is all relative positions, but the pandemic and a variety of social programmings, essentially money designed to stimulate the economy, has been used by a variety of other countries, and they don't have quite the same um, comfort with deficit spending that the United States does. And a lot of the so I don't want people to be horrified by this, but a lot of the debt is exceeding gross domestic product. So that's never a good sign. So let's get back to the chart right now. So, but again, Rahu being where it is uh, could indicate an upset. So we'll have to wait and see. But right now it's a little bit too close for me to call. Mercury is now one of the reasons it's too close for me personally to call is because Mercury's really weak in this chart. So you see right here, this screws up communications, it screws up finances. It's in the same sign with an exalted Venus, which just is almost out of range of Saturn in planetary war. So I've spoken about planetary war. It'll be out of range of planetary war uh, by by later on today or tomorrow at the very latest. So Saturn moves much more slowly than Venus. Venus escapes from planetary war. Venus also, according to some astrologers, beats every planet in planetary war. But planetary war is when um, the planet is the planets are closely together in the same sign within 1 degree of each other. That's the way I learned it. There are several different interpretations of this. And Saturn and the planet at lower degree is usually considered the victor in planetary war. At least that was the way that I learned it years and years ago. Venus is naturally strong. It's pretty much twice as powerful as any other planet. Um, and it's said that the only thing that can defeat Venus is a god. So that would be Shiva or the sun or the moon. Those are all considered devas or gods by the Hindus. These are um, lower level devas. The planets themselves are lower level devas. They're not as strong as the sun and the moon. Okay, who are considered the king and queen of the solar system. And so when you have this kind of a combination and it's combined with Rahu, so Saturn and Rahu have been really closely tied together. Rahu acts is acquisitive, but is also what I would call a very um, frustrated planet because it has no um, body to catch what it absorbs in. So it becomes Saturnian. It has high aspirations, but it's always disappointed in those aspirations. If Saturn and Rahu are together, that makes like a super Saturn combination. And we have also what's called the Kala Sarpa Yoga. All the planets are between Rahu and Ketu right now. K2 is all swallowing them up, so that's really what's called a Kala Amrita Yoga. It's a different kind of Kala Sarpa Yoga. Kala Sarpa Yoga is a serpent of time yoga or combination. And that means that essentially efforts to change or efforts to move forward are frustrated. Also, what's frustrating efforts to move forward essentially is Mercury being where it is. There's a lot of confusion about um, what's really going on. Mercury's aspected by Ketu. There's also a lot of lying going on, or Mercury aspects Ketu. And right now, the media is and political parties are in what I would call a warlike, emotional warlike mode. Because we have this weak Mars in the moon sign. Now, this counterbalance, so again, this is a relatively familiar phenomenon that we've seen, but it's not very often that Mercury is free of Ketu's influence, to be quite honest. And in the United States birth chart itself has a Mercury Rahu conjunction in the eighth house. So there are always people behind the scenes cooking up some kind of trouble or trying to stay in power or trying to control things behind the scenes. That's not unique to the United States. Uh, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. It's just essentially the way the world works. So we don't have, um, we never get a clear image of the way the world works. So we have a lot of business interests, a lot of bureaucratic interests, a lot of um, states trying to control actions from behind the scenes. Uh, every country has a spy network, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not really a conspiracy theory. It's just essentially um, the world is like an iceberg. You only see about 5% of 5 or 10% of what's really going on. Okay. So, so essentially, when you have combinations like this, you have all the planets are kind of linked in one way or another. So Jupiter is linked to this cluster because it's in the 11th house with Venus in Venus' sign. Venus is in Jupiter's sign. Moon is in Mars sign, and Moon and Sun are linked to Mars. And essentially you have this large, what I would call malefic um, block around all the planets. We have Saturn, and so even without the nodes, you have Saturn and Mars encompassing all the planets. So that's a very wide part of our yoga, but it is significant. So this indicates that people will fight for issues they feel emotional about. Logic is going to go out the window for the next couple of months, to be honest with you. So we're going to have what I would call scandals that are concerning but have no real consequence. And what I mean by that is you'll have criticisms of countries or administrations or people trying to make reform based upon the idea that nobody would do such a thing. Nobody, this is beyond the pale. This is beyond what any responsible person would do. It doesn't matter whether or not it's caused any real harm. And this is what's happening with, I think, with the Hegseth situation in Washington. This is what's happening with um, uh, people, um, trying to think of a way to put it, with people trying to curl up individuals with um, verbal messaging as opposed to real actions. So you're going to see a lot of this um, feigned outrage over the next couple of months. I think that the toughest thing for most people to do over the next couple of months will be to maintain their sense of balance and equilibrium. Um, Venus is really the planet which is most connected with that. Jupiter is connected with long distance wisdom, but Saturn's aspecting Jupiter, Saturn's influencing Mercury, Saturn's influencing Venus, and Saturn is indirectly influencing the moon. So Saturn will influence the moon on tomorrow as well. So again, in general, if you want long-lasting change to occur, start new activities tomorrow. And the other thing that I want to point out to people is that commerce will still be confused for about another 2 weeks, mainly because of Mercury's placement in Pisces. And it'll take about 2 weeks for Mercury to clear out of that sign and go into Aries, and about another 3 to 4 weeks for Venus to clear out of the sign and make its way into Aries. Now, Venus in this particular sign is actually pretty good. It produces good results. It's friendly with Saturn and Rahu, so in some ways this is not a bad conjunction, but the Mercury conjunction is bad because it tends to give us the most pessimistic outcome. And I think one of the things you'll see is, especially as Venus starts to pull away from Saturn and Rahu, we'll start to get more optimism and um, more realities entering the picture. So Venus right now is within 1 degree, as you can see, between uh, from Saturn and within 2 degrees of Rahu. Now Rahu is like ink poured into a solution. It doesn't change just one part of the sign, gray or black. It makes the entire sign, it affects the entire sign all the way through its transit. It's actually because malefics are most powerful when they're in the last degrees of their transit. Rahu and Ketu are actually more powerful now than they normally are because they're both considered malefic planets or difficult planets. So again, I think one of the things to keep in mind is just if you get bad news or if you hear bad things happening, just take a deep breath and say, okay, how can I manage this? Because inevitably over the next couple of weeks, there'll be some bad news or some distorted news or some news which will rankle you. So just prepare yourself for that. It's not really, it's not the end of the world. It's essentially a lot of these planets are going to start separating. By July, Mars will enter Leo. A lot better, a lot better. And Jupiter will also be in uh, Gemini by that time, much better than now. So again, like I said, these are a temporary situation, but we're feeling it at its most intense mainly because of this combination right here. Okay? So this has probably drained a lot of people's energies. I know that on Friday and Saturday, I felt washed out because the moon was in this particular sign. And right now I feel a little bit more energetic because the moon's in Aries. And that affects me physically in a chart. And I'm sure it affects everybody. So essentially, unless they're in a different kind of a major planetary period, which is another important part of Vedic astrology. The thing about earthquakes, and there'll continue to be anxiety about earthquakes in places like Turkey, and I believe there was an earthquake in, I want to say, was it in Africa or in Southeast Asia, I think. Um, and so a lot of that is caused, believe it or not, by Mercury and Mars. So both planets are connected with the Earth element. Mercury is connected with Virgo. K2's in Virgo right now, and Mars is debilitated. So that will make a lot of people disaster prone or prone to accidents. So again, be very careful driving, traveling. Be very careful with your emotional states. There's a real strong tendency to blow up at people very easily with this combination. Just be mindful, uh, but uh, uh, be mindful and try to keep yourselves calm. Um, I have that challenge myself. It's not just I'm not just sitting here as like this wonderful detached being. I'm a human being too. I have these emotions too. It helps that I understand them as an astrologer, but at certain times of the day, I get really impatient with people. I get really upset. I get really angry or hurt. So it affects me. I kind of know what's going on, uh, but if you're not aware, but I would be conscious of it, uh, especially around in the so sunrise is over here. Right now, Mars is in the first house, so I would be conscious of it like around this time of day, and also in I would say around between 6 and 7 o'clock at night when um, when this sign, when Libra is rising, and also close to midnight when we have Capricorn rising. It'll tend to make us more aggravated or more uh, prone to lashing out at people. Okay? So just keep that in mind. It's not, you I know the expression is the fault is not in the planets but in ourselves. But I think the other thing is you have to keep in mind that there are certain planetary combinations which are concerning. Um, I've had people telling me they have been feeling high anxiety or getting bad dreams, especially early in the morning. That's this combination right here. Okay, is causing that. Okay, so again, it's not you have control, but these things are essentially pushing you to be less patient, less um, forgiving, less careful than you would be otherwise. So that's why I'm expecting people to be a little bit more cautious of their surroundings than normal. All right, so that's the end of the lecture. In terms of affairs, it's very easy during periods like this for wars to break out, for conflicts to occur. We had it seems like both Ukraine, and Russia are like pushing buttons a little bit more aggressively than they would normally be. And but also one of the things that we're seeing is that certain European powers are also less confident that they can help out Ukraine to the extent they want to. So I believe Macron and Schumer backed off in terms of aid to the Ukraine, or they're lessening their commitment. Um, and I don't have players. I don't have cards on either side. Okay. Um, Most of my life, I've been a moderate to a progressive. I'm not really inherently conservative unless I see the progressive side getting damaging, and I have seen it getting damaging over the past few years. Um, so I tend to find a place in the middle. That's where I feel most comfortable, most at home. So just to let you know my personal proclivities. But sometimes you do hit crisis mode and you do have to take aggressive action. That's just the way it is in life. So, but I'm not, but I find it interesting that the rhetoric around assassinations has increased over the past couple of weeks. The rhetoric around secession in Canada has ramped up a little bit. The rhetoric around, I mentioned last week Ireland canceled an election. There have been a lot of election cancellations in European Union and European Union allied countries. So I, I think we're seeing a lot of fear of change happening. Some of it may be justified. I'm not saying it isn't because you don't know what's going to happen. But the other problem is you can't maintain the current system is, at least as far as I can tell, at the very least difficult to maintain, if not impossible. So there has to be something has to give somewhere. And I think we're teetering very close to having um, local governmental decisions being made by national or non-elected interests, and that's a bit dangerous. And the emphasis is coming from both sides. It's not unique to the progressive side of things. So it's something that, again, it's a juggling act. It's not something which is clear. I think we'll have clearer mindsets as Jupiter heads into Gemini. As Jupiter heads towards Cancer, we actually tend to become more nationalistic from my experience, not less so. So I think that um, there's an inevitable shift to the right in many countries around the world. So that's anticipating a couple of years from now when Jupiter enters Cancer. All right, so let's go back to the charts for you individuals as Aries, Taurus, Gemini. All right, so Aries is April 15th to May 15th. Um, and okay, so be aware of water, just one last, be aware of water injuries, of earthquakes, of car accidents, all those things because of these three planetary, actually four planetary combinations, okay? And it'll seem like things are getting really, really bad before they get much better in June and July, okay? Um, but again, it'll be a lot of what I would call hand wringing versus really negative things happening. So let's get back to your charts. For Aries, April 15th to May 15th, a lot of self-confidence in the sign, but a lot of expenses. Good for money acquisition, but they go on expenses. Mars, a lot of emphasis on home life. K2 is in the sixth house. Again, be careful about accidents, about injuries. And also relationship life will be a strong focus for this chart this particular week. Um, Let me just, yeah, so especially expenditures from relationship partners or from business partners. For Taurus, this is May 15th to June 15th. We have Jupiter. I never pay attention to Uranus, to be honest with you, because I find Rahu and Ketu do a much better job of predicting when upsets come, but I can't ignore Uranus in the first house in Taurus. But basically, Jupiter sits in the first house as the 11th and the 8th house lords. So that means unexpected shifts or changes for this rising sign's fortune, or this sun sign or rising sign or moon sign's fortunes. Good potential for money, though, because the Sri Lagna is in the second house. So I don't often talk about these particular placements, but it's important. Mars is in the third house. There's a strong emotional ambition to get things done, but it will be thwarted, and you will have to watch out for anger from siblings or from relationship partners. And that's true mainly because Mars is in the third house of siblings, and relationship partners are ruled by Mars. So relationship partners will seem a little bit angry or upset. Good for financial gains, but again, pretty heavy expenses for this sign, especially connected with home life and especially connected um, with marital partners. So again, not really different, but the judgment of this sign is better than the sun in Aries in the first house because that's almost a dictatorial combination. So Aries will be a little bit more aggressive. Taurus will be a little bit wiser. Um, Gemini is June 15th through July 15th. Sri Lagna sits in the first house. Good for financial gains. Good for career recognition, especially as the week progresses. But this sign will still feel some anxiety for the next, uh, I would say around the next 13 days or so, and next 13 to 14 days. And it will also be a little bit angry and have a lot of expenses hitting it. But there will be financial gains for this sign. Relationship life looks, I won't say absent, but relationship partners will be distant or tough to connect with just from this combination and maybe a little bit isolated. But not a bad, at the start of a relatively good period for Gemini, which will actually start to see really good results in June and July. Cancer has Mars in it. Again, this is a Raj Yoga Karaka planet for this. This is why, if I can just digress to Trump's chart for a second, this is why Trump is having so many difficulties with enemies and also with the Defense Department. Mars is located in his 12th house, interacting with Venus and Saturn in this chart. So a lot of the confidence that people would normally have in a president, it looks like he's losing that that faith. But I think you'll see some changes in this particular aspect of it come starting in May and going into June and July. He is at risk for physical injury over the next year, but especially over the next couple of months, or the next 3 months in particular. But if we go back to Cancer, let's look at Cancer again. So let me just, sorry for the digression. Let's go back to Cancer. Cancer is actually in relatively good shape. It'll be a little bit more short-tempered than normal, but it's in relatively good shape. The Lord of the fifth house and the 10th house are placed in the first house. That's good for career success and career placement. It may have to yell in order to get things done, but it will get things done. K2's in the third house. So a lot of courage for this sign. A lot of luck, but delayed for this sign as well. And a lot of career success and financial gain for Cancer. So this is July 15th to August 15th. Leo is August 15th to September 15th for in Vedic terminology. And that's because the ionopsia or the slight wobble in the Earth's axis. And the, the Raj Yoga Karaka planet is placed in the 12th house, so it will give some declines in luck and reputation. But basically, it will actually give some luck in dealing with people from other countries or relatives. Um, K2's in the second house for this chart. Again, it will be misunderstood or will seem confusing. The actions that this sign is taking will seem confusing or a little bit prone to misunderstanding. Rahu, Mercury, Venus, Saturn are in the eighth house, so you have to watch your back. This sign will have to watch his back for about the next month or so, and even more so and even over the next uh, year and a half, because there will be repeated. No, I'm sorry, the next 2.5 years, because there will be repeated attempts to slight or attack this sign. Rahu will move into the seventh house shortly, within about a month to a half. Within about a month to a month and a half, excuse me. And Saturn will stay in the sign after Venus and Mercury clear out as a presence until 2020, roughly 2027, 2028. So, but this sign actually is showing good leadership ability. The Lord of the first house is in the 10th house, along with the moon, the Lord of the 12th. So there can be some success overseas or in the other lands. And Jupiter's in the 10th is in the 10th house. So good for career luck for this sign overall. And Sri Lagna is in the 11th house. My apologies. So that can give some increased financial strength to this sign. For Virgo, Virgo has K2 in it. I mentioned this several times. This has been a persistent theme for the past year and a half. K2 can give intuitions about bad events or events that you can have feelings about before they happen. K2 won't stay in this sign for much longer, about another month or so. And it will move into Leo, so it'll move into the 12th house, which will make this sign more spiritually active. But there's some possibility of fame for this sign. Um, Relationships will seem difficult, though, for this sign. It's just in your own money will be a challenge as well for about another 3 to 4 weeks. And um, Moon and Sun are in. So we have the 12th house Lord in the 8th house, the 11th house Lord in the 8th house. Unexpected financial gains. Okay. But partnerships will be a little bit troublesome or dicey. And Jupiter sits in the ninth house, actually good for luck for this particular sign. So you'll see expanded career opportunities. For Libra, this will be October 15th to November 15th. The Gati Lagna is in this particular sign right now, so there should be some fame or recognition to the sign. Sun and Moon aspect the first house, so that sort of like underscores that. Um, and the Lord of the first is in the sixth, so it will seem to be health, struggles with small pets, and also I would tend to say some minor misunderstandings and some delays in fulfilling projects or goals in life. Jupiter's in the eighth house. Unexpected windfalls are still possible from this particular placement. And Sri Lagna is in the ninth house. That's actually a good position for this particular rising sign or sun sign or moon sign. And Mars is, believe it or not, well placed in the 10th house. So this sign will be working a lot over the next 2 months. Some increased financial gains after that uh, from unexpected sources. And so again, Libra has actually not a bad week, but it will have a lot of work to do. And it will seem like the struggles are unending, but financially not bad. Scorpio, this lasts from November 15th to December 15th using the Vedic calendar or the sidereal calendar more properly. And um, you have Mars in the ninth house, which again is somewhat lucky for this rising sign. Moon cancels out the debilitation, so it will produce luck through self-effort and through hard work. We have a lot of planets in the fifth house, so there will be some anxiety about children. Children will seem to be either difficult to deal with or closed off or even a little bit greedy at times. But overall, Jupiter sits in the seventh house, aspects of first house for Scorpio, which is not bad. It's actually good uh, for wealth, for financial success. All right, so Jupiter. So again, watch out for your friendships. Watch out for people who are close, who purport to be your friends but aren't. For Sagittarius has the Upapado Lagna in the first house, so this is actually somewhat auspicious for making new partnerships or for financial gains. The Lord of the first house is in the sixth, so it will seem like it's going to take a lot of effort to make those things manifest over the next couple of weeks. After that, they'll be easier to manifest financial gains. And we have Moon and Sun in the fifth house. There's a lot of attention on children, especially on their growth and their self-confidence, and a lot of changes in home life, a lot of extra pressures connected with home life and family for this particular sign. A lot of ambition to return to school or to learn new things, but still a lot of obstacles to doing that. For Capricorn lasts roughly from uh, January 15th through February 15th. And this particular sign has a cluster in the third house. Um, I do know somebody who has this rising sign and they had a lot of expenses. So this is the 12th house. This is the 12th house from the fourth house. So it will cost money to get things fixed. And also, at least from the chart, uh, but again, a lot of ambition, a lot of solidity for this sign. Jupiter's in the fifth house in this chart, so children will be doing reasonably well, and you'll see a lot of growth for children. Um, Sri Lagna is in the sixth house, so gains. Uh, Wife or relationship partner will be, or business partners will seem to be having less patience than they normally have. K2's in the ninth house. Good time for spiritual development, good time for spiritual growth. Unexpected shifts in luck, unexpected promotions with this combination, but mainly after um, the end of April. Mainly after actually around mid-May, my apologies. The Aquarius goes from February 15th to March, I'm sorry, from March 15th. No, it goes from February 15th to March 15th. And you have the Lord in the second house along with Venus, along with Mercury. This is a Dana Yoga or a wealth-producing combination, even though Mercury is debilitated. So you'll see a lot of financial gains for this sign over the next month or so. Increased confidence, increased interest in learning, and ability to take part in that. But again, you have to be careful for accidents or for damage or for anything connected with pets or with vehicles. Pay extra close attention to that because those are in dangerous positions right now. Kate, who's in the eighth house, a lot of interest in exploring or looking behind the scenes, and I think you'll find a lot of new knowledge acquired by this sign over the next week or so. Finally, we hit Pisces. This is March 15th to April 15th, and there are a cluster of planets in Pisces. Usually, we don't want to see clusters of planets, but this is not as bad as it has been. Sun and Moon are outside of the cluster. And so usually there's financial stress when you see a lot of planets in one sign. So that's why we're going through financial stress right now. As the planet starts to separate and move away from that conjunction in May and June, you'll start to see far less financial stress. And also, at least from the chart, um, there's a lot of attention on relationship life, a lot of attention on um, desires and goals and ambitions, although I wouldn't recommend anybody get into a new relationship at this particular point in time. Um, Business partnerships, again, I would avoid them for most signs. Um, the only ones I probably wouldn't avoid might be Scorpio, but I'd really wait until Jupiter's in Gemini. And let's see now. So good for financial growth, good for short trips. Children will be a little bit difficult to deal with, a little bit angry or a little bit um, sullen. And finally, Kate, who's in the seventh house. So again, not a good time for a relationship. Um, you'll be attracted to people who are a little bit indifferent or who don't care about you that much. So that's it for the signs as we go through. It's a little bit more condensed because we don't have a lot of planets in different signs. They're all clustered here. So let's go to the time-space change map, the astro mapping chart. And we're going to go close it again and open it up. All right, so there is a Mars line close to Hawaii. Does that mean earthquake or activity in the Aleutians or in Alaska or in Hawaii? Maybe. Um, I result in nothing at all. Maybe some changes in administrations, but again, this Mars line is not really close to the sun, to any landmass. So this is a little bit of a stretch to say there'll be changes in administrations in those or even violence, but bad weather conditions, yes, certainly. There's a Jupiter line passing through, and it's not really connecting with America at all, the United States or North or South America. We do see some evidence of political scandals in all the way from Idaho, Montana, Idaho, down through Nevada, down through Arizona and California. So those states are going to have some, and also into Baja, California. So those states are going to have some political scandals. They may be minor political scandals, but I'm just thinking um, the way Venus is situated, they'll probably be about money or, and again, there have been some scandals that have come up over cosmetic surgery, so that's a Venus phenomenon. Um, so, so I just saw an article about that. That's why I'm bringing it up. And Trump pardoned the person who used campaign funds um, for cosmetic surgery. So that's obviously a no-no. But you pardon the individual. There's a Mercury line running through right through North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, um, Kansas, Oklahoma, and down into Texas, and down through the central part of Mexico. So we'll be hearing a lot about that part of the country. And I believe that's a Mars line passing through North Dakota. So maybe some potential for violence or bad weather patterns there. Uh, Crossing all the way down through um, Mississippi and Alabama and down into Cuba, down into Panama, and all the way down through um, Venezuela and affecting Chile, Ecuador, and some changes in government in some parts of these world, or some threats to government in Peru, Ecuador, and even in Chile. And I believe I've heard there have been some stops on elections down there. There's a Mars line, so we might see some fighting in Bolivia and Argentina, or some disruption down there, or some destruction, some destructive activities. Um, if we go all the way over, there's not much affecting Brazil right now, although there is a Jupiter line. And I did want to mention something about the courts in the United States. The sun being exalted actually puts more power into administration and less power into judges. So the Saturn aspect on Jupiter is going to affect judges adversely. So so keep that in mind over the next couple of months when you're seeing shifts in power uh, happening. Let's see now. There's a Jupiter line passing close to the Azores, and some scandal in Azorean government, maybe some scandal in Icelandic government. It looks like possible. And along the Ivory Coast, you have a Mercury line, so we should be hearing a lot more about Ireland and England and also Portugal and Spain over the next few months. Mars is passing right through Sweden, down through close to Belgium. It's not quite in Belgium, but close to Belgium, Germany, and some parts of Italy as well. So, and also through uh, Northern Africa, down through Ghana, down into um, South Africa. So again, we can expect to see some violent activity out there. We do have a sun moon line passing close to Turkey and close to Greece. So we can expect some more governmental disruption out there. I wouldn't necessarily uh, make it earthquakes, but I wouldn't put it beyond the possibility that we'll see more earthquakes, but I would say relatively minor ones in Turkey and also in Eastern Europe. Ukraine is roughly here, and so there's sun and moon lines in Ukraine, so that we'll have people hunkering down and trying to defend where they are. But also, it can mean a shift in government or a shift in leadership. Um, so this will be an interesting week. There's a Jupiter line passing over Rahu, Venus, and Saturn passing over Pakistan, Afghanistan. So definitely some scandals about local government, definitely some scandals about even about Russian government happening. And the Jupiter line is kind of evading that, but Jupiter's going up through central Russia, touching on China. So you can see some adjustments. It's also touching India. So India should have a relatively prosperous period right now. But I'm thinking, yeah, and the Mercury line, actually, India will be in the news a lot, at least from what I can see. Um, but for good things, basically for trade opportunities. We have the sun passing through Southeast Asia, and especially specifically Cambodia, close to Vietnam, close to Myanmar, and um, also in China. This indicates changes or shifts in government. Oh, I didn't mention Canada. Sun Moon conjunction over here. Yeah, so the discontent in Canada is strongest over here. And there's also some discontent over here. So yeah, I'd be surprised if there wasn't a change in party, but not stunned. It's really a very volatile situation in Canada right now. Um, let's see, sun and moon. Okay, so I'm talking about the sun moon. So shifts or changes in government, shutdowns of government in Indonesia, and also Mars, also some violence connected with that in China, going all the way up and sort of affecting Korea, especially North Korea. Let me just, and we have some more lines going through. Oh, excuse me, and I wanted to mention, so Indonesia, suppression of elections or suppression of people voting. And we have a Jupiter line passing close to Japan. Japan looks actually one of the countries which is in slightly better shape. New Guinea is having, um, and Australia look like they're doing okay, but there is some scandal brewing on the horizon in Australia. The Venus-Saturn Rahu conjunction indicates to me there's some kind of fiscal crisis coming in, financial crisis coming in Canada. And finally, we have Mercury passing over New Zealand. So that actually means New Zealand will be in the news quite a bit. And I'm thinking it's for political reasons, nothing else. So that's about it for me for this week. I thank you for watching. I love you all, and I really appreciate your support through the years. Again, encourage your friends to subscribe, and please subscribe yourself if you haven't already. I'd greatly appreciate it, and I promise I'll be your friend. Um, that's about it from me. I love you all, and I hope you have a great week. Just remember, it's going to be a little difficult this week, um, and the difficulty will probably extend into around mid-May, but I think the worst will be over this week. And just try to keep your eye open for opportunities. There are opportunities out there. So let's say if stocks fall or something like that, sort of an opportunity to buy or get in. But again, um, try to make plans tomorrow or try to set things in motion tomorrow if you want to make big changes in your life, which will last. In terms of investing, probably wait until mid-May. And in terms of getting clarity about the news and what's going on in the world, you're not going to see that really until I would say around the end of May or something like that. Okay? All right. So that's it for me for this week. Thank you again for watching. And thank you for welcoming me into your homes. And namaste. I love you all, and God bless you, every one of you. Okay? Remember, tomorrow's an important day. Thank you, and thanks for watching.